What's up, fellow Square Gamers? Welcome to our first ever review for a video game on the Square Gamer channel. Today we're having a No Man's Sky review discussion. And Nate, how many hours have you put into No Man's Sky?
Alright, I got 180 plus hours into this game before I really felt like I could speak with any sort of authority on it whatsoever.
Yeah. And I just want to show up the sexy box art because I think that's the best box art of like 2016.
I really like it too. Now, there's no reason for us to go into all the controversy surrounding this game.
Right.
Obviously, it's been a very polarizing game. It's received a lot of hate. There's no shortage of news on that. So instead of going into a more traditional review, this will really be more of a discussion about the game in general. And I really just want to focus more on the positives of my experience with the game. Because
we will critique it. Don't worry about that.
We
have our critiques. Nate specifically has his critiques. I only played the game for about 6 hours, so I'm not going to speak too much about it. But I will say why I only played it for 6 hours. But let's get right into it.
All right, so first of all, this is my favorite game of all time, and bold statement. But to put things in perspective, my previous favorite game of all time was Killer 7 for the GameCube. And if you don't know what that game was, it was an on-the-rails shooter that was my favorite game based on its art style and its story mode. It was my favorite game based on gameplay mechanics. So this should give you an idea that, my taste in video games is a bit peculiar.
Right.
So No Man's Sky basically did everything right for me. I kept up with this game from the moment it was first presented at E3. I followed it its entire way, and I had my expectations set actually pretty low. I mean, when we had talked about the game before, I had mentioned that as long as I could fly from planet to planet and get out and look around, I was going to be satisfied with my experience.
Mm-hmm.
That it does great. Like, that is the one thing that this game does that they said it was going to do, and it does it perfectly. Every time I visit a new planet, I'm completely immersed in the world, and it's one of the best experiences that I've had playing video games in my entire life.
Tell me about some of the favorite planets that you visited.
Particularly, my favorite planets to visit are forested planets, tropical ones, the ones that have rainstorms. Obviously, any kind of planet with high biodiversity, with a great, variety of plants and animals.
What's the weirdest, coolest animal you've seen?
Some of the weirdest things I've seen are giant flying bug monsters and what I refer to as tube heads.
Tube heads?
Tube heads are a particular variety of aliens that basically have tubes for heads.
Okay.
And you'll see different variations on them, but they are strange every time I run into them. So the one thing that I love about this game and what kept me coming back to it was the sense of the unknown. Now, that is really, the thesis of space exploration, is this idea that you're going out into the unknown where no one's seen anything like it before.
Right.
And that's the experience that No Man's Sky gives me. It gives me this galaxy, and I can approach a star and visit all these planets that I know no one's ever been to before. And just having that feeling when you step out onto one of these alien worlds and know that no one's seen this place before, and you might see something that no one has ever seen before, that feeling is what kept me coming back to the game so often.
Keeps you.
It keeps me. I haven't stopped playing yet, which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about is really kind of my journey, my own personal journey through the game. I didn't play the game like most people did, I think. A lot of the people that I imagine played the game basically bolted for the center of the galaxy, because people are finishing the game quite fast. I didn't actually do it that way. When I first started the game, I concentrated on upgrading all my equipment, learning languages, and basically exploring at my own pace.
Yeah.
So I spent the first 100 hours of my game doing that before I started realizing that I needed to make some sort of progress towards the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
So,
and see, that's a big problem too. It's like, because of the way video games have been created throughout our whole lives, like, they're created with a goal and an objective in mind, and like, that's not really necessarily what No Man's Sky is. Like,
right.
Yes, there is a driving force. You do want to eventually try to get to the center of the galaxy, but like, there's, spoiler alerts. So, if you don't want anything spoiled, you might want to leave now. But there's really nothing once you get there.
Right. Yeah.
There's just more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was a big letdown for people. But I think it's because they've been trained their whole lives to, you're building your character up and you're progressing to get to some grand finale, and that's not really what No Man's Sky is.
Right. Yeah. Once you get to that grand finale, it's
the game's like you said, discovering a new planet, seeing like what the ecosystem's like, exploring it, mining it for resources so you can get to other new planets to explore. It's about exploration.
Yeah, that is the main part of this game. I think if you go into this game,
with that in mind,
you'll be fine. That's like when I had heard, because I tried not to spoil what was at the center of the galaxy until I got there, and then when I found out what exactly was waiting for me, I decided just not to do it because I was having too much fun being in this one particular galaxy and continuing to explore it. I didn't feel like I wanted to have to start my game all over again and go to another dimension or another galaxy or whatever. So one of the things I read about the game, and I think anyone who plays the game should follow, is that if you find something you like doing in No Man's Sky, continue to do that. For me, that was just basically exploring. I just liked walking around and looking at stuff, and when I was having the most fun with the game was when I was doing that. So, if you find something you like about No Man's Sky, just continue to do that, because otherwise, if you try to go to the center of the galaxy, you're going to be let down.
You're going to be let down.
Is the main takeaway from that. I did, after I spent some of the time casually exploring, I went on to follow the Atlas to find out what was that about. That turned into a whole ordeal to me and became the catalyst for me getting to the center of the universe, or the galaxy. So that was really strange, following the Atlas structures and accidentally shutting myself off from them was kind of an interesting experience, because when I was approaching the Atlas structures and collecting the Atlas stones, I had this overwhelming feeling like I didn't want to end the game, like I wasn't ready yet, and I actually, ended up completely shunning the Atlas altogether.
That signs of a good game.
Right. Like, I was at a tier where I could have ended the game, and I didn't want to do it because I wanted to continue to stay in that world. So after I got done exploring the Atlas structures until I got shut off from them, that's when I started basically jetting my way to the core of the galaxy. And I pretty much did that for 2 or 3 weeks until I got to the center of the galaxy, and now I'm back in exploration mode.
Yeah.
So,
and now you can play at your own pace.
Right, I can go back to doing that, like, when I started. You might
even start enjoying the game even more, because now, like, you can, when you get on No Man's Sky, you're getting on now with the objective of just going to find cool stuff.
Right, yeah. Instead, I'm done upgrading most of my stuff. I have no more desire to get to the center of the galaxy, because I'm there. Like, I can see it from where I'm at, so I don't have to go any further, and I will just continue to explore, which is something I'll get into at the end of my review.
Okay.
I got a little idea for that. So,
okay.
The next thing I want to talk about is the state of the game as it is now compared to when it launched.
Right.
Now, there have been significant updates to this game since its launch. They fixed all of the problems that I had with the game. One of the biggest things was the crashing, the game would crash like ridiculously often. And since the last update, I hadn't had the game crash on me once, so it seems to be perfectly stable now.
What about that glitch where you would glitch to like
the upper atmosphere?
Yeah.
I haven't had that once either. That completely stopped happening, so that's been great.
I feel like they were quick to patch those things too.
They were quick to patch a lot of the problems with the game at launch. One of the biggest things that they patched that I thought helped the game out tremendously, probably the most of anything else, was the new system that they put in place for locating alien life. When the game first launched, you had no indication of where aliens were or which ones you had scanned and which ones you hadn't scanned. Now when you bring up your scanner, you'll get little points on your heads-up display. Some will be marked red and some will be marked green. The red ones are the ones that you have not scanned yet, and the green ones are the ones you've already seen.
Nice.
So I really love this mechanic because it kind of forces you to explore the planet more. Instead of just hopping around on your spaceship, you'll get out of your spaceship, quickly bring up your scanner and see like a bunch of red dots, and so you'll just want to just walk over there real quick, and en route you'll find interesting geological formations or maybe other aliens on your way. So that was the best thing that I think they added to the game as far as the updates. They also, a little thing that they fixed was being able to scan some of the flying aliens without having to shoot them down. I was kind of playing in a pacifist mode, like I wasn't going around like killing everything, just to do it, but I was having to shoot the flying aliens out of the sky in order to scan them for like my first 20 or 50 hours of the game, which I didn't like doing. Like I was like, I gotta go around like an old colonial, explorer and blast birds out of a tree in order to, document
colonial
them.
marine mate.
Right. So they fixed that, which I really loved, and all the other glitches are gone. Like there was, little glitches with the heads-up display, and like you said before, with taking off into the upper atmosphere. I've not encountered a single other glitch since then. So to me, the game is pretty much in the most perfect state it's going to be for my experience. Now, with all that being said, I'll go ahead and address some of the problems I did have with the game, because without a doubt, this is not a perfect game by any stretch of the means.
Perfect game for you.
Perfect game for me.
but not perfect game for everyone.
For everyone else. Some of the biggest things are that you will see patterns start to emerge in flora and fauna. You'll see like the same types of trees with color swaps and stuff after a while.
And that was a big thing going into the game. Like, a big question people had was, sure, there's like 50 million quadrillion planets, whatever.
Right.
But is it going to start recycling assets and just give you a different shade of gray?
Yeah, and that is kind of what happens. Like, after a while, you will start to see repeating patterns in the types of trees and animals that you'll find, but in a way, it didn't bother me too much because the different combinations of such and geological formations on planets, it always kind of led to, some really unique planets. Not all of them felt unique. Like, I would land on planets that would feel real samey,
mm-hmm.
but then eventually I would find a planet that I was just absolutely head over heels for and really seemed new and original and had interesting and unique features to it.
What was that movie with Matthew McConaughey?
Interstellar.
Would have been cool if you could have landed on a planet where like this big tidal waves coming at you and you got to like run to your jet and get out of there. Like that would have been cool.
But yeah, set pieces like that would have helped the game out, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, because I wonder if because a big part of this game is it doesn't have those moments that you're used to in games where like the developers wanted to tell you a story here or there. It didn't have these set pieces or anything of that nature. I wonder if you would if you were to take what they've created and then add in those like gamey moments into that world. Like, I wonder what that would have been like.
I think that's the future of games and this genre of game making. I think it's going to go in that direction.
Right.
They'll create these huge universes, but they'll also implement game mechanics that will set up these storylines that will lead you to action set pieces.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're going to go with this eventually.
Because to compare it to a game very similar to it, Minecraft. Like, in Minecraft, when you start mining down, like, into the earth, you can find these really cool, mysterious caves, and there'll be zombies down there waiting for you and stuff like that, and, like, precious metals down there and things of that nature. I would love to see this game do something like that, to where it's like, you know, you get a distress beacon and, like, maybe you find somebody who was stranded down in a cave system and you got to go rescue them. Like,
Right,
I would totally be on board for that.
Yeah, there's very little of that.
Yeah,
you know?
there is.
You just basically you can find crash ships, but it's like everything
Very
feels
superficial.
the same. Yeah, the gameplay mechanics as far as that go are actually really shallow.
It would be cool if, like, you know, when you answer those distress calls, you're actually finding an NPC there, and, like, they thank you for you know, answering their distress call, and, like, they want to reward you, and they tell you, you know, here's the coordinates to my home planet. If you're ever in the area, come see me. I'll have a reward waiting for you. And you go to their planet, and it feels kind of unique and stuff. And then, like, you get some new, like, blaster, you know, some kind of upgrade to your ship or something. I think that'd be cool. Like,
that is the way it probably should have been done. Which
right.
That's actually one of my nitpicks about the game is that.
Is it a game?
Yeah, it's not. It's hard to call this.
What did you call it? What did you call it?
I called it the best walking simulator I've ever played.
Best walking simulator, yes.
Which is really what it is. But that was my biggest critique of the game, is that the structure, because it does have some elements of a storyline to it, but I don't feel like it was structured the best it could have. I see what they were trying to do with setting up this universe that was free to explore at your own pace, but still gave you something to do at the same time. But I still think that it could have been better. They really could have added more depth to it, and it wasn't the best. And after a while, I just stopped visiting, you know.
It's almost, to me, like, it feels like they created this awesome, like, procedurally generated galaxy, and then there's, like, nothing in it, kind of, you know, just like.
Well, it gets to feeling that way. Like, the first 20 hours, you really feel like, you know, there's a point to all these points of interest and these aliens that you can talk to and get things from. But once you've accomplished all that, you have very little left to do after that.
Yeah.
And very little investment left in it, because once I got most of my stuff upgraded, I just stopped going to, like, settlements on planets. I wouldn't even stop by a space station if I didn't need to, like, sell off some crap that I had.
Right.
You know, I would just focus on exploring, because at some point there's no point to, you know, visiting these aliens. Which, my biggest complaint about the game is the language system. It takes forever to learn a language in this game.
Right.
I've got to the point where two of the races I can actually understand fairly easily, but the one problem I do have with the languages is there's 4 of them, and the Atlas language, the one that has to do with these giant Atlas structures, the thing that's on the box, that thing there, it has its own language. Now, at the pace that you progress through to the Atlas stations, and they stagger how you can interact with them by achieving certain milestones. But even with that, you don't learn enough of the language to understand what it's saying to you. So by the time that I had reached the end of that kind of arc with the Atlas and it shut itself down to me, I had still had no idea what it was saying to me. Like, I'm sure there was probably something interesting in there, but I'll never know what it is now because I can't revisit it. And there's almost no point in it at this time. So that was one thing. Like, the other 3 languages, they could have kept it at the way it is now, but that Atlas language, it should have been easier to learn that language, or it shouldn't have been coded at all. Because I can see that a lot of players probably blasted right through that part without learning much of that language or finding out any of the lore about the Atlas. Like, I have no idea what it is or what its purpose is or anything. And I'm almost 200 hours into the game.
Do you think that, like, because basically what you're saying is, like, you reach a point in this game to where it's kind of like there's not a whole lot of incentive to keep going. Do you think that attributes to the game's 97% drop-off rate?
Right, because if they had staggered, like, if you could reach the center of the universe at the same time you would top off all your upgrades and maximize your inventory, I think a lot of players would have felt like they had a more enriching experience. Because what happens was, especially in my case, you upgrade all your stuff, you get, all your inventory slots, and then you find out that you're only 1/6 of the way to the core. And then you're like, well, now I got to switch gears to get to the core in some reasonable amount of time. If I had gotten to the core by the time I had gotten all my upgrades and all that stuff, I would have felt like I had a more enriching experience. Maybe the game shouldn't have been a 60 to 80 hour trek to the center. Maybe it should have been only, a 40-hour trek to the center.
Right.
With, just tweaking some of the hyperdrive.
I was going to say, it just sounds like it lacks a little bit of balance.
Right. That's the big thing, is that the things that were in place to drive you to doing things in the game feel unbalanced. Like, if you were going to make the core of the galaxy one of the ultimate goals, make it so that you get there within a natural progression of your character, not like you max out your character in your inventory and then you got 100 more hours to go until you get to the core or something like that. So that was really my only complaints of the game. It's hard for me to be critical about the crafting elements and the faction elements because that was nothing I was interested in to begin with.
Right.
I wasn't expecting a deep crafting system. I wasn't expecting to align with a particular faction of aliens and do battle with the other two factions. That's not in the game's lore either. Like, the three factions of aliens, they're not at war with each other. They're just competing alien races.
Yeah.
So, there's no disappointment from that for me. So, now that I've reached the end of the game, the center of the galaxy, and I still don't feel like leaving this world because this is one of the best games I've ever played in my own opinion, I've come up with an idea for what the No Man's Sky community can do in this game, since there's not really anything at the center of the galaxy for us except for basically starting the game over again. What I'm going to suggest we do is the Galactic Core Mapping Initiative. Now, the galaxy is so extremely large, there's no way that we're ever going to see any of it. That much is mathematically certain. But the area around the core is a defined space. And since I've gotten there, I've found several other star systems of other players. So my suggestion for No Man's Sky players is if you're not just going to randomly wander the galaxy and you want to get to the core and have a meaningful in-game experience, stop right at the core. And what we should do is start to map all the star systems around the core, because there's like a 6,000 light year bubble around the core, and then there's an edge of stars around the core. So it is very conceivable that we can map all the star systems around the core and then spread out from there. I'm not saying that we're ever going to completely map the galaxy, but we could have a meaningful, almost multiplayer experience by mapping out all these stars around the core. It'll give players, an incentive to get to the core, to see other players' star systems, to help other players fill out those star systems, because many of the star systems I reached, they didn't visit all the planets or scan everything on those planets. So if you find a star system that another player's found, you can still go there and help them map it out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Scan the things that they missed and stuff like that. And it would be impressive if it could be done. And I understand that the player base is probably 2,000 to 4,000 players at this point. But for the few of us that are left that are diehard fans of this game, I think it provides a meaningful goal for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to add something to the experience that the developers didn't intend. And later on down the line, if a multiplayer experience is added to the game, we're all right there.
Yeah, right.
Once you're at the core, it becomes a million times easier to find another player.
So it's a hub.
Right, and if we have it mapped out, then if you get to the core and you say, oh, I found so-and-so's star system, and then you could like plug it into a website or something. I'm not saying I have the skills to make anything like that, but you could look it up and find out, okay, or I'm in this quadrant around the core, and then you can find another friend of yours, say we're going to meet up at this system, get your map, and then head there and meet up with a friend of yours.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we should be doing with the end game. It's what I'm going to continue doing from now on.
It'd be cool that like if like there was a mechanic where if there's another player in your proximity, if you could like triangulate and like communicate with them and like
right.
like if they're in your proximity, like it'll prompt, do you want to get into chat with this player?
Right.
That'd be kind of cool, and that'd be a cool way to have that multiplayer mechanic, and then be like, hey, you want to meet up at these coordinates and like meet up at a planet together, go do some mining together. They talk about like, all this is pure speculation. We don't know if it's true, but they talk about you'll be able to craft your own like base in the future, and it'd be cool if like you could like help each other kind of do mining together and things of that nature. So what the future No Man's Sky remains to be seen. That's a topic for another day. This is a review discussion, and it wouldn't be a proper review without rating it. So Nate, what would you rate this under the category of buy it, rent it, or just like overlook it?
So here's the thing. I'm gonna kind of rate this on a couple of tiers here. For the casual audience, this is a rental. Do not buy this game if you're a casual gamer, because I don't think that you're going to get a whole lot out of it. I think the casual gamer might find it impressive for the first 20 hours, but if you don't like the grind and you don't like the exploration, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot there for you after the 20-hour mark. If you are a sci-fi person and you love the sci-fi genre, movies and games and stuff like this, this is a must-buy. Like, just the fact that you can see a planet in the sky and know that you can go anywhere on that planet once you've flown there, that in itself is enough for me to justify buying this game. So I definitely give it the extremely decent game seal of approval. Buy it if you're a sci-fi fan. Just rent it if you're a casual gamer and find out if it's really for you. And that would be my recommendation on this game.
Yeah, and for people that have already bought the game, they bought into the hype and the game just wasn't for them. A lot of people bought this game digitally, and a lot of people got burnt. I think this game, despite its major drop off, I think it's still going to get continual support. I think it's going to be a vastly larger game 6 months from now than what we have today, which is why I stopped playing. My 6 hours with the game, I decided to stop playing there because I was really, really enjoying myself. And then when all this negative energy started like formulating on the internet, I didn't want it to sway me. Like, I didn't want it to influence my time with the game. So I'm like, I'm going to walk away for right now. I'm going to let this negative energy go away and then revisit it in 6 months when the game's been patched to death, when it has new content in the game, maybe more game elements to it, the balancing issues we talked about, they fix it. And then the people that are going to be around will be the cult following, and I think it'll have some real positive energy.
Yeah, I really think this is going to be like a Minecraft game where it's a slow burn.
Yeah, so if you feel like you got burned, just hang in there. Because I think Hello Games knows they got some work to do on the game. And like you said, even though it's probably one of the best games you've ever played, you understand that maybe it was marketed incorrectly, and maybe it's not the game for everybody. But I think that's a pretty good review on it, and I take what he's saying. If you haven't bought the game and you're curious about the game, just make sure you're into exploration. Understand that there's not necessarily a goal to this game. I mean, it really is all about exploration.
Right. Yeah.
Appreciate your review on this game, Nate. Really solidly done. And keep it locked right here, guys. We're going to have a future No Man's Sky conversation about what VR could do for No Man's Sky. So keep it locked right here, guys. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Later.